this episode of the Joy of Liberty podcast, we talk about Super Tuesday, potential results for the 2020 election, Chris Matthews' departure from MSNBC, and the strange case of the coronavirus, aka COVID-19. Okay, so here we are, the Joy of Liberty podcast. This is the day after Super Tuesday, and what do you have to say about it?
Well, I would say that, again, all the experts should all be fired.
Well, they should have been fired the first time.
Right, so they didn't, and now they should be fired again. Because I know this was a big surprise to all, and those things happen in the life and in the universe, but not one of them had any clue. And just 24 hours ago, they were so wrong in their projections. So what else is new? The Bernie revolution is put on hold. The good news is, one thing I think was really good news is that, and Bernie is part to thank in this, is that the American people aren't hopelessly dumb, that the 2 billionaires couldn't buy a delegate, so that at least that's checked off or X'd out of the list. A billionaire can't self-fund themselves and buy an election.
Right.
At least on a national level.
Just to fact check you, Bloomberg did win the American Samoa primary, so he actually will have some delegates. But I get
Yeah, okay. What did he get?
But I get
10 delegates?
But I get your point. It's not just blatantly, billionaires just can't come and blatantly buy the election.
Not yet.
Now,
or not allowed yet.
Maybe that's just because at least Bloomberg was just so bad. Like he had no charisma. That's not to say another person, a billionaire who's, fascism is more concealed, I guess you could say, because Bloomberg just had no charisma and he only had a bad track record of anybody reasonable. Trump is a billionaire, maybe not. We don't know how much he actually is worth. If he actually was a billionaire, he'd be shoving his tax returns in our face. That's what I've always said. But for what it's worth, he didn't outright buy the election. He actually got people to vote for him. It wasn't AstroTurf.
And also Steyer, another billionaire who wasn't a bad person and was a great visionary, but he couldn't buy it because the American people don't buy that concept. They just don't feel right about it.
Well,
as a trend, I would say, you still had the Floridians that voted for a billionaire that bought his own elections 3 or 4 times. So it's not that it doesn't exist, but I think the trend is, you know what? And then on the other end is Bernie showed that one could run a serious, hard fight, successful campaign without any big money. Not one bit of big money. He proved that the people can consolidate by the millions and help fund a politician. So between the two factors, I think it's a very positive status, if you will.
Well, you're probably right about the Bernie thing, but I don't want to, be hopeless completely yet, because I want to analyze the situation, because to me, it's fairly transparent what's going on. So, Bernie, of course, the media completely downplayed the fact. I think they said he was the first presidential candidate in American history to win the first 3 primaries back to back. So that happened. So, here's my theory or idea of what's going on, and you tell me what you think. So basically, the system doesn't want Bernie, obviously, and they're doing everything they can. The media, politicians, everybody's trying to stop him. God forbid he wants to give people health care and education, and he might raise your taxes slightly, rich people. So, ooh, get fucked. Anyways, so they all, for whatever reason, we just knew Biden was going to win South Carolina, I guess because he has strong support they're saying he has strong support from the older African-American community for whatever reason. I don't know why they say the African-American community hates Bernie, even though he's been fighting for civil rights since the 60s. Whatever. But once Biden won the South Carolina primary, I think that's when the calls were made to everybody. Because I was shocked that Buttigieg dropped out immediately after that, because he actually had more delegates going in before Biden, and then Klobuchar dropped out too. And then they just had that Beto guy came back from the grave too. They all endorsed Biden. And I think that they've decided to make their stand with Biden after he won South Carolina. They're like, okay, we've got a jumping off point, even though my prediction is it'll be a horrible failure again. But I think they're saying that Obama in the background made all the calls, told them to stand down basically and get on board. I'm sure they cut deals, they're going to get cabinet positions or whatever. And what do you think about that?
I think that you're generally right, but I want to speak up against my man Bernie. He didn't grow the voter base. He performed with the black vote, which is very important in the democratic world. He didn't raise it an inch since 2016, even though he tried. So he failed. He failed to get the black vote. He failed to leverage his civil rights work for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know the weeds of it all. But he failed, and the black vote in the Democratic primary is the big vote.
But here's the thing. I think it's such a short-sighted thing because they're saying that, first of all, South Carolina is more than not guaranteed to go Republican in the general election, right? Basically. And they're saying statistically that the majority of the population in South Carolina is older people. And so obviously Joe Biden has support from older African-American people. It just seems like a very weak argument to build a case on because Bernie's got support from the young African-American community.
But the end result, Lee J, is Biden, for whatever reason, has grown the base. There was 100,000 more votes in Virginia than last time. 100,000 was added. And that's white, middle-class, Republicanized women are voting for Biden. So it's not just the black vote. He's got the suburbs. He's got the soccer moms. So he's grown the base, and Bernie hasn't. Bernie's got his 30% core. Yeah. But he hasn't really expanded outside of it. So that's my analysis.
Well, and the thing is, from the beginning, he said it's not just going to be me; it's going to take all of you. I think it really just if what you're saying, if your analysis is true, then
that's more or less the people's fault than it is his, because he said from the beginning, I can't do this by myself, I need you. He's trying to inspire young people, working class people, all the marginalized communities, and they just failed to step up to the plate when they were needed. But like I said, we still have more primaries to go. I don't think it's such a loss at the moment. Like it depends how long the fight wants to go on. You know, he's not going to give up easily. You know, he obviously got a lot of delegates from California. I still think it's worth waiting to see the results. The real interesting thing is everybody, or at least all the progressives, or at least a lot of them, are all pissed off at Elizabeth Warren right now, because that supports part of my theory / conspiracy. Why have all the centrists dropped out to support Biden, but Elizabeth Warren, some are saying stubbornly, is staying behind? Because that's to siphon off Bernie votes. And who knows if she has a deal or not, but if she either ends up Biden's VP or like helps swing the convention to him, she'll basically be dead to the progressive movement forever. So that's my theory, is that they may be cutting a deal with her to make her his VP, as like, oh, look, I have her, she's progressive, right? I'm uniting the party. Ha ha ha. But after all the shenanigans that she pulled and all this, I don't think the Bernie people will buy it.
I don't know. She came out last night and said she's not quitting, and just common sense would say, how the fuck can you expect to be considered serious for president when you can't even win your own state?
Well, she
came in third.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, is that this is all part of the scam. She's staying in the race just to split the progressive vote so Bernie doesn't get as many delegates.
Right.
So she'll basically be a traitor to the progressive movement. And like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if they try to make her VP for Biden. Then it would be really transparent what was happening. So like I said, she's going to be dead to the progressive movement. And even then, I think she's probably just being lied to, because they'll probably give it to like Stacey Abrams or something, because all the hacks are saying that would be the best, safe, get African-American support for Biden. So they might just scam her over as well. Like, because, everybody is a liar these days. So what does it matter even if they gave her a deal or not? Whatever. Go be Treasury Secretary if you want, Elizabeth. That's what I'll give you. So those are just some of my theories that are stirring around in my brain. I still think it's too early to give up completely. You still have it's the Rust Belt states, right? And New York. Right, and Pennsylvania. So, I mean, yes, it was a shock. It's not surprising to me because, like I said, they basically did Operation Centrism. They made everybody else quit, said, all right, get in line. Y'all got cabinet positions or something like that. We got to take Bernie down. This was, there's still a lot of big states left. And again, the most important states are the swing states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. If Bernie can do well in those states, then I still...
Well, here's the challenge. You got next week is all... is a lot of the southern states. So he's going to sweep them. And it's... right now, he's got he's close to 100 delegates over Bernie. I just see that this wave, this surprise wave of the rush to vote for Biden is going to continue. And like you said, some of the Rust Belt, the people, the workers, the poor people have to go out and freaking vote for their own, to protect themselves. And if they don't, well, so be it. I just want to jump way over it all and say, do you still think that Trump's going to get elected?
Yes. Especially if it's not Bernie. Bernie, like I said, look, Biden, nice guy overall, he's Uncle Joe still to a lot of people, and I get that. But he is a source of a lot of the problems facing my generation. Like, he's directly responsible, and I didn't realize how recent this was. In 2000, he was majorly responsible for the bankruptcy bill in 2005, so that students can't discharge the student loans from bankruptcy.
Right.
Like,
right.
Why is that not being shouted by the rooftops every day?
Right.
So that's what the progressives have been saying to Bernie. It's like, Bernie, look, we love you because you're a nice guy, but you got to get strong. Dad, it's time. I've been saying that on Twitter and all this crap all day today. We got to get Teddy Roosevelt. We got to go Teddy, full-blown bull moose progressive if we want to win.
Well, let's see what happens. The next debate's just going to be the two of them.
Well, maybe Bloomberg and Elizabeth Warren if they're still technically in the race. But here's the thing. First of all, I was shocked. Last time you said you think if it is Bernie, it'll just be McGovern.
Right.
And I completely disagree with you. Because, remember last time, 2016, all the polls said that Bernie would have sweeped it. Hillary was just unacceptable to a lot of people. Like I said, Bernie would have won, honestly. And I still think he can. But here's what I keep telling people every time they bring it up. Math is not on our side because most presidents get reelected. Just flat off first. So that's against us. And, Trump has the institutional advantage, whatever that means. And, they keep saying the economy is doing great. Apparently it is. It's not for most of my generation. We can't tell the difference. We're still not going to be able to get married or buy homes. At least I don't have student loans to pay off, but, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people do. What do they say? There's like $1 trillion in student loan debt that's crushing an entire generation of people. So here's the thing I've been saying from the beginning. You know why he's going to win, if nothing else? Maybe, who knows what crazy stuff's going to happen next few months. He still hasn't pulled the war card yet. That's still a possibility. They're saying that coronavirus is... They actually said, I think it wasn't even in South Carolina, they said that the coronavirus made people want to vote for Biden more because he was more safe. Even though you figure you'd want to vote for the guy who wants to give you health care so you don't have to go into debt $3,000 to get the coronavirus, test that they're doing. But here's the thing that no one wants to talk about, or at least the media and the politicians do. We've been saying this for months. Joe Biden of 2020 is not the Joe Biden of 2008 or even 2012. His brain is turning to mush. Right? Are we just going to pretend that's not happened? Do you know how bad Trump would destroy him in a debate at this point?
I know.
People think it might be funny. It's it's not going to be. It's not going to be funny. It's going to be sad and depressing. I can't even imagine. Ugh. So, but here's the thing, we literally did this, at least Hillary's brain worked. You know what I'm saying? Again, she had lots of handicaps. He's got more handicaps than she did. Put it this way, he's not as universally despised as she was, but he's got, like I said, he's not the same man he was even 10 years ago. So I think that's the biggest problem.
You see where he got confused between his sister and his wife?
Right. And that's the problem with Joe Biden. It's not just that his brain's not working, it's that it's weird shit. You know what I mean? He says it'd be different if he was just forgetting things or, he said the wrong city or state. But he always says the weirdest shit that's so off-putting. And that's the worst part, is that it kind of makes Trump less creepy in some ways. You know what I mean? At least he's
It's like, speculation is Trump going to, play into that? And it's like, no, because there's 1,000 clips of you muttering and slurring your words. I don't think Trump can go there.
But Dad, you forget, he can do anything he wants, and his supporters don't care. Right? What's his famous quote? I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, it wouldn't lose any votes. It's the same thing.
Right.
Like, Trump could literally do the same exact thing as Biden, and they don't care. And that's the problem with we've let politics become, is the double standard. Like, it's okay, apparently, if Republicans almost elected a pedo to the Senate, but, we can't get a guy who's a Democratic socialist, I guess, because I don't think that's going to play. That's why everyone keeps thinking that Bernie will lose horribly. Even Trump himself admitted that Bernie would be the toughest person to run against him, because he's Bernie's real populist, Trump's fake populist, and real populism will always beat fake populism. And these people are, out of touch. They think that they can just go back and pretend that Trump was a fluke or an accident. And we can't go back to the neoliberal Obama-Clinton years, because we that's what led to Trump. And even if Trump somehow doesn't get reelected, which leads a whole other set of issues, like him just saying, no, I didn't, and not leaving, which we can talk about. But then we'll just get a worse, if you don't deal with the issues that got Trump elected in the first place, how people were so desperate and angry to vote for a loudmouth, like misogynist, racist, probable rapist, tax cheat, potential traitor, then it's just going to happen again with someone who's more sophisticated, and the fascism will be implemented better. Like, luckily, he's an idiot and a buffoon. Like I said, imagine if, that's why I said Bloomberg might have been worse, because he would be competent in his authoritarianism. So.
Well, and I agree. I would say the Democratic Party, the institution, is basically incompetent. And the Republican Party is evilly powerful.
Right.
So I think as the months roll by, that eventually the numbers of not racist, hating, Christian, end of days, anti-abortion, gun-toting numbers are just going to be overwhelmed by an incompetent but growing democratic institution. That's my view.
Well, for what
I think
go ahead.
That the Republicans are going to have to either literally do a dictatorship, a military junta. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time before they disappear and they go the Whig Party.
Well, that's why they've had to go to blatant corruption. That's why they're basically using Trump. That's why they're doing all these voter suppression tactics. They gutted the Voting Rights Act. So I agree. Their constituency is slowly dying, and that's why they're getting more and more desperate for power, and why Mitch McConnell is basically turned into, Emperor Palpatine, basically. Like, I've always said, I think he's worse. Like, I always say, like, Trump is the rabid dog, but Mitch McConnell is the one who let him off the leash. Like, Trump, like I said, Trump's a buffoon, but Mitch McConnell is the evil one who's basically destroying our country. And again, nobody can, maybe I feel like I should write a letter to somebody or something, or who would tell me, but Mitch McConnell is Senate Majority Leader. Why does that even matter? That's not a real thing. He's made it up. Why is he in charge of the Senate? Remember, it's the president of the Senate should be in charge. So what the hell is that about? No one can give me an answer. No one. And again, remember my idea? If Bloomberg or these other billionaires really cared about, saving the country, they would pay me and millions of millennials to move to Kentucky and South Carolina to vote out Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham.
Right.
Bloomberg could do that overnight. Here's like $100,000. Go rent an apartment, and then we can vote them out. And I'm sure they'll try to come up with some BS voter restricting law, but it's obviously too late for that now. But that's my theory. You need people from New York and California to move to these states. It's the only way it's going to change, because populations are getting more. It's not left versus right. It's, elites versus the working class. And that's why all these, they call it value issues have become such an issue, like the abortion and the guns. These were all decided like 20, 30 years ago. Like we need to get people to want to vote for us, because we can't just keep giving tax cuts to rich people and corporations. That's not enough people to win elections. Because I really think, except for the few crazies like the ones you're talking about, the ones that are waiting for the end of days. But I think most, what used to be called standard Republicans honestly don't care about most of those value voters. They just want enough people to vote for them so they can give themselves tax breaks.
Yeah, well, those Republicans are controlled by the voters, the Republican voters, and those evangelists, although their numbers are not huge, they're very influential. They are. And it serves up the menu for racism and white supremacy and Jesus Christ was blonde and blue-eyed. It's the old racism at the core.
So
I don't know.
So what do you think? So what about the doomsday scenarios that we've talked about? Like, do you think, regardless of who it is, because I still think, Joe Biden is in some ways worse than Hillary. Like I said, I think people overall like him better as a person, but he's got a lot more baggage. He's done a lot of, he's for the Iraq war. He's, on tape saying I would cut Social Security many, many times over. Like, he's got a lot of baggage policy wise. I think he'll probably, and that's not counting his, mental decline. I honestly think, and that's been the debate in the Democratic Party between, liberal. Like I said, I don't call them centrists. I call them, there's liberals and progressives. Liberals whine and complain about what people say on Twitter. Progressives get shit done, or at least we want to. Remember? What would Teddy Roosevelt do? That's what I try to live my political values with. Either Roosevelt, And I think that Biden will get crushed because it's the same old shit. And the people won't go back for that anymore. And as long as the economy doesn't tank, and we don't go to, and we may or may not end up in some BS military conflict, which I'll talk to you about. But like I said, most of the time, most presidents get reelected. And where they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's what Biden is, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And I agree. I agree that he's not a good, strong presidential, successful president.
And and just like you said, Trump's got his base, his 30%, his movement. They failed with Hillary. We might as well, like we said last time, we might as well go down swinging. Like I said, I've been saying for months that what should have been last time and what should be this time is just like you said, Republicans are basically going to have to go fascist at some point to stay in power. So this election should be the final choice, basically, is social democracy under, the Nordic method, Scandinavian style, FDR, New Deal policies, or corporate fascism. Those are the two choices, and sorry, quote unquote, centrists in the middle, you got to choose between the two. What kind of country do you want? Because this neoliberal centrist, when 60% of the country is in poverty, isn't going to work anymore. And if you're going to give someone the choice between, the status quo and the guy who's going to burn the thing to the ground, they're going to burn the thing to the ground, because that's not going to inspire anybody. Like, Dad, put it this way. Let's say it's Joe Biden, right? And let's say he wins the election. How many people, and then Trump says, no, you didn't. I'm not leaving. It's fake news, scam, election, it's rigged. How many people are going to go out into the street and fight for Joe Biden?
I don't know. That's too far out.
You don't think that's a possibility? I can totally see it happen.
No, I don't think it's a possibility.
You don't think Trump would say, I didn't lose?
He can say what he wants, but he will have lost the election.
So what?
He can say whatever the fuck he wants to say, but he will be getting booted out by the new president.
All right, so let's talk about that. So what do you think would happen if he says, I'm not leaving? What happens?
He gets escorted out.
You think it's that?
The Secret Service will then be reporting to the new president-elect.
So you think it's that simple? You don't think he's going to get all of his, crazoids all riled up?
Yeah, sure he will. But he'll be dragged out of there.
Well, you're a lot more optimistic than I am in that scenario. I still think because he's not going to give up without a fight, because he knows, at least he should, as soon as he leaves office, he should be arrested and put on trial. But he won't. He won't. Exactly. We know he's going to pardon himself and all of his friends and family, so that's kind of a non-issue.
And he's now a Floridian, so New York would have to, and not expedite it. What do you call it?
Yeah, extradite.
They would have to extradite him, and that ain't going to happen.
I just assume
that I would see more uprisings than, dragging him out of the White House. And that I could see as a possibility. Is that when they go to extradite him, he refuses to go, and he goes to the governor of Florida and said, "I'm seeking asylum."
I don't think that'll work. At least.
So I don't know.
Well, I think if that happens, the biggest thing you have to worry about will be the time after the election and before the new president takes over. What will he do in those few months? I've always joked that he'll go on one last diplomatic tour, and he'll go on a diplomatic mission to Moscow, and then he'll just stay there with Air Force One, and then he'll seek that's. I can totally see that happen if he's afraid of going to jail.
I can see that happen too.
Right. Okay, so we at least agree on that as a possibility. And then everyone will finally admit that he was a scam, but then they'll just say, oh, the Democrats made him do it.
Yeah, right.
But honestly, do you really think, mush brain Joe Biden can beat this guy? I don't.
I think that the voters will. It has nothing. Let me try to express something. It has nothing to do with Joe Biden. This surge in this wave. He had nobody in Virginia working the campaign. He spent $0 because he had $0. In spite of him doing absolutely nothing, terrible campaign, he gets a wave of support. It's the voters, Lee J. It's not Biden. America is exhausted, scared, and afraid of another 4 years of Trump. And God knows there's enough 100 million Americans that will vote against Trump. You have Bloomberg. First of all, he can't give Bernie money. He can't give anybody money. There's laws against that.
Well, whatever. He'll just give it to a super PAC. He'll give like $3 billion to a super PAC, and then they'll just use that to pay for Biden. That's basically.
No, what he'll be doing is what he's doing now. Is just consistently sending out billions of advertisements and direct mail and tweets and social networks on how bad Trump is. So he will be working for the voters, the mass of voters. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I see nothing wrong with that. I just believe that it has nothing to do with Biden. He was a failure. He was adamant. He lost everything. He couldn't do shit. And all of a sudden, the black minority whip comes out and says, you know what, Joe, shut the fuck up, stand up, and do what has to be done. And yeah, the secret calls for the Klobuchars and the Beddoes and all of them. It's the voters. They've had enough. They've had enough. The majority of voters has had enough. And unfortunately, the best that the Democrats are trying to come up with is Joe Biden. Come on, man. Put that energy behind Bernie and we won. We win. But no, they put it behind the loser.
Right.
The guy that lost, lost the first three primaries, he's the loser.
No,
but
and he's been running for 30 years.
This is his third time.
Right.
So it's, in spite of all that scamming, the voters are just saying, you know what, we got to beat Trump. And we got to beat the Republicans, and not just Trump. We need to disembowel the Senate controlled by the Grim Reaper. And I think that's going to happen. I really do.
Man, where did all this optimism come from? That's very uncharacteristic of you.
Because I sat up all night listening to Kornacki. He's a master. And I could see that it's the voters that are deciding, not the party, not the man. I mean, Joe Biden's a loser, a total loser. But everybody's voting for him because of the behind-the-scenes scam against Bernie, and the corporate, the corporate news trying to submarine Bernie. Everybody's after Bernie. Everybody's after Bernie. So, all right, I'm going to go vote for Biden. And he gets a landslide on Super Tuesday. And it's going to continue. He's going to get the southern states. We don't know about the Rust Belt. it's not going to be a landslide for Bernie, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's ultimately what I think it comes down to, though. Like like I said, in the end, like, okay, so he wins all the southern primaries. Like, no shit, that means nothing because none of those states are going to go for him in the general election. But you know what? They've been saying it all comes down to those swing states. So I really think what happens in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan, and that's where because those are the states that'll win the election. I'm sure he'll win Biden will win Florida too. There's no hope for Bernie in Florida for various reasons, but it really depends on those Rust Belt working class states, and we'll see what they. It's like I said. I've said last time that's all the election came down to was just they said it was a few tens of thousands of votes in each of those states. It came down to.
Right. And what next week is Michigan, I think.
Yeah, and you still got New York, which is a closed primary state, by the way. Yeah. All right. So.
Right.
So you.
All the Republican. Moderate Republicans can't help.
Right.
They can't help.
Okay, so you're thinking that you think it's just going to end up with Biden now, that the machine is so desperate to go back to the way it was in the status quo, like Joe Biden is just a vessel for the neoliberal establishment. Like, let's just push him across the finish line, get rid of Trump, and who cares if his brain doesn't work?
Yes, I fully support that concept.
Okay.
And it's not just it's not just the Democratic elite and power brokers. It's the voters. It's the tens of millions of Americans that said, I can't take it anymore.
Well, we'll see. Well, these are just, like I said, these are just the Democratic voters, too,
Right.
So it's hard to say if, like I said, I think you're taking a big risk and a gamble with Biden as opposed to Bernie.
I agree, but I'm me and they's they. So he's got the wave, he's got the surge. It will continue, and it'll be a knockout punch fest with Bernie, and Bernie will make Biden look scarily weak. The practice round before Biden versus Trump, it's going to be Biden versus Bernie. Bernie will eviscerate him on the facts.
Right. And then Trump gets to say all of that when he's running against him.
Right.
Right. And that's why...
But it won't matter because too many Americans are not going to allow Trump to get reelected. That's my belief.
All right. Well, we just have different agreements on that then, because I just don't see... Right. I don't see...
As much hate as there was for Hillary, there's more hate for Trump.
Well, I guess I can only hope that you're right. It doesn't really give any hope for my generation and the generation after. We basically know we're screwed, and that's the end of the story, I guess.
Right.
So I can say this. I can say this in solidarity with my generation, the generation after me. Okay, boomer. Like that's basically, this is going to be the okay boomer election in history books. Like, yeah, Trump was like a freak accident, and then the system corrected itself. But again, I think you'll just end up with a worse Trump further down the line. So a charismatic, competent fascist, basically.
I don't see that as inevitable, because your generation is growing in numbers and will be adding to the mix that didn't exist before. it's 2024, 2028. Eventually, the suffering of the American people will allow the people to choose better. I believe that.
Okay, let's just hope you're right, because I think it's a big gamble with the Biden. You know, it's just...
He's useless.
Right. He's
Like
useless.
He's useless. He's got so much bad baggage. His brain's not working. He was a complete campaign failure. Complete.
Right. He's winning in spite of himself, basically.
Right,
Like
right.
he did everything wrong, and they're still gonna make him the nominee.
Right. But when you say they, Lee J, I think we got a disagreement. I think that the elite, yes, they are in control, but they can't override the people's vote. And there's just many people that are hurting, and in spite of their dumbness and their ignorance, are going to be able to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, we'll see.
Okay, like I said, I think it's going to be, like I said, I hope that you're right. I just think it's going to be the exact same thing, and then we're screwed. All right, so let me bring up this hypothesis then, at least before this, because like I said, like I said, it's just the media's, they underplayed Bernie's first victories, and they're going to overplay Biden now. We still have a bunch of important states to go, and I think that's will be the final determination. Like, if Bernie does surprisingly well in Ohio or Michigan or Pennsylvania or New York, then it's going to get more interesting, because what about that whole, like I said, why do you think Elizabeth Warren's still in? What's her angle? What's she trying to do? Because I think she's part of the scam Bernie team, but what do you think? Like I said, why did Klobuchar and Mayor Pete drop out so fast, and she's still around? That's why I find it suspicious.
I would say it is suspicious, but I don't know. I don't have an opinion.
All right. So what do you think will happen if, let's say, Bernie does end up with the most delegates, just for the sake, and then they try to scam him on that? What do you think will happen? I think that would destroy the party and guarantee a loss.
Oh, you mean when the superdelegates come in?
Yeah, like let's say Bernie is up on delegates, and then they all.
Oh, then the Democratic Party is finished.
Okay, because that's my belief as well. You're going to lose the whole progressive movement and a whole generation, and then the party's dead. So we agree on that one.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Right, and that's terrible.
Yeah, I know.
So you think that, like I said, Bernie still has a chance to come on top of the delegates, and you think they're just going to scam it at the convention?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
He's not going to have a majority. He's not going to have a majority. He's going to have a plurality.
Well,
you can't change the rules. Well, why not? You changed it to have Bloomberg come in.
Right, and I think what's underplayed right now is this. Actually, there was a loss. I think I don't know the specifics, but basically, some voters took the Democratic the party. They basically took the Democratic Party to court, because it's basically, of course, it's underplayed that it's basically known fact that they were tipping the scales and working against Bernie, and it was rigged last time. And the lawyers for the Democratic Party basically said, well, the Democratic Party is technically a private corporation. We can do whatever the hell we want. So, no, and I'm not even making this up. This is like they basically said this in court. Like, they basically said, we don't have to follow the will of the voters, and we can do whatever we want. So
Right.
It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone.
Right.
But I feel like you're.
My dream is that Bernie wins because he's not a Democrat. So we don't need the Republicans anymore. We don't need the Democrats anymore. It's a new age.
So are you saying you want him to pull a Teddy Roosevelt and run third party, even though that probably means Trump would win anyways?
Yes.
Huh. Interesting. Because I've been the one to think that I would have done. I don't think that would work this time. I think last time was the time to have done that. It was known that he was scammed. Because I feel like that year, they were both so hated, Trump and Hillary, that anything was possible. That would have been the time to go third party, and I really think he would have won that. But now I don't think it would work because of the infestation of Trumpism into the government and our society. Because like I said, statistically speaking, most presidents get reelected, so he already has that advantage towards him. But like I said, I doubt Bernie would do it, but you might as well go down swinging if they're going to scam you.
Yeah.
So
they're going to scam him. He's going to get scammed.
Again, and then they'll lose, and then they'll blame us for it. Like I said, the centrists, I hate calling them that. I don't even think that's a real deal. The neoliberals, basically.
Moderates. How about moderates?
We'll talk about those terms later and how they're all fake. But, like, regardless, whatever happens, it's going to be, quote unquote, our fault. It'll be the progressives' fault if they lose.
Right.
Like, doesn't matter how many rallies Bernie will have for Biden, if Biden's the nominee or whoever it ends up being, which is probably be him if they get their way. And, nothing's ever good enough. So, hell, might as well make it interesting. And then they could just blame Bernie for Trump because that's what they want. Remember, in the end, it's you still say it's the voters just want go back to normal, but I still think that the power players in the end, just like you said, you'd guarantee a win if they just backed Bernie. Guaranteed he'd win.
Right.
But they're so scared of losing their power and money and desperate for Bernie not to be president, they're willing to take the weak gamble on mush brain.
Right.
Like, that's a big and again, then they'd be like, you know what? If Trump gets reelected, whatever, he'll just be a wannabe dictator for a few years, and my 401k is doing great, and I can still send my kids to like private school, and everything will be fine. I think that's the real. They're just scared of what real change could or potentially could happen with the President Sanders. That's all. To them, Trump really isn't, quote unquote, that bad. Their bottom line isn't affected that much with Trump as president, basically. So
we'll see what happens.
So I want to bring up something because I think, at least for you, so Chris Matthews abruptly quit his show. And I only bring this up because I know you have been a big Chris Matthews fan for years. So I want your perspective on the whole situation and what you think. And, I mean, are you familiar with why and what happened?
Not deeply, but I understand there were some charges on his verbal abuse of women or something like that. I don't really know.
So yeah,
they really haven't. They haven't covered it.
Well, that's the whole point. So let's just backtrack a little bit. So obviously he's had worms in his brain for a while, making all those outrageous statements against Bernie, thinking if the communists win, they'd be executing me in Central Park, and him winning a primary was analogous to the Nazis in conquering France, saying batshit stuff. And so he had a lot of heat on him. And then somebody said he was weird and creepy to me. Then came a little bit that he was weird and creepy to some of the other news. And then that's what got them to fire him, basically. It was a combination, but they didn't, basically, like, how many more women would come out of the woodwork and say he did weird shit to them? That's why they just shit canned him immediately.
Right. He blew himself up.
Right.
And I think the worms in the brain is a function of age. Once again, these are old brains, Lee J.
Right.
That all have and exhibit loss of memory. To get old, you lose some memories, but you also have the Alzheimer's.
Right.
Dementia sets in.
Well,
you call it mush brain. Part of it is, he's fucking 78 years old. Come on.
Well,
That's 8 years older than me. Check back with your dad 8 years from now.
Oh, boy.
And see how useless my brain is at that point. I'm
Right.
serious. And I don't know, Chris Matthews is, if I recall, is about my age.
I think he's 75.
Not that old.
Or 74. He's just a few years older than you.
So, he lost it. That's you wanted my opinion. I liked Chris Matthews. He was sharp. He was exciting. He was intuitive. And then all of a sudden, he got worms in his brain.
Right.
Oh my God, the things he was saying were so outrageously outside of his persona. Well, where the fuck was this coming from? So, I'm glad to see him go. I miss the hardball because at least he was a hardballer. He wasn't a softballer. And now we just have more mush.
Right. More generic stuff on MSNBC. It's just so disheartening.
Right. So let's see what happens. You're right. There's the Rust Belt. Are the Americans that have lost their very livelihoods, all the factory jobs, everything's made in China? Come on. What a failure our government has been.
But Dad, just let me bring this up that we didn't mention. I mean, I think I did, but I'm just going to bring it up again. Just imagine these two, it's going to be like, what have I been saying? It's going to be like senility versus insanity debate. How gross is that going to be for the history books, that debate?
I don't know, but it makes us sick, a sickness in the pit of my stomach to think about it.
Right. Everybody thinks it'll be like, ha, 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 look at these two angry old men shouting at each other. But it's going to be nasty. Like I said, I think Trump wants to. I think everyone's got it backwards. Everybody thinks, he wants to go against Bernie. No, he knows he probably won't even show up to a debate with Bernie because he'd get crushed. I wanted to see Brooklyn v. Queens. Damn it! But now we're gonna get rabid dog versus droopy dog.
Well, the rabid dog may lose it as well. He's an old fucker too. And, he's, we all know his narcissism and his lies and everything, but he really, really, really can't control himself. Look, he got himself impeached trying to stop Biden.
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
Think about how huge that is. You know, I'll just get myself impeached, but I'm going to stop that, man. His legacy of his Obama hate, you know, he's not an American, he's a Muslim, blah, blah, blah. It's a, what's the right word? It's a phobia that if you add, now it's a 78-year-old having this phobia, it's beyond rabid dog. It's insanity.
Right. Oh, it's going to be gross.
Oh, Lee, I'm nauseous thinking about it.
All right, so let me ask you this, since obviously your opinion, you lived through Vietnam War and everything till now. So, like I said, unfortunately, if what you think is going to happen, we're never going to get the final showdown. Like I feel like the country needs. We're just going to get, Trump again, or whatever. Let's just go back to whatever. Obama was fine. But so
we're gonna get, it's the McGovern story. It's the righteousness completely stomped on.
Right.
Put on the neck of the righteous. We are conservatives. We're white, Protestant, Catholic, born-agains, and sorry, that's who we are.
And who cares if 60% of the country is living in poverty and is one medical bill from being completely broke?
Right. Yeah.
Ugh. Okay. So, with that said, so let's take it to, we got two things here. So let's say if Trump gets reelected, what happens then?
We're fucked.
That's it?
Yeah.
In what ways are we fucked? Like, how bad does it get? What does he do?
It gets to prison camps. We get Uyghured.
Really? You think it'd get that extreme?
Yes.
And
because he'll be 80 years old.
Oh. Oh. All right. So that's your extreme. Trump is you're saying he's just going to go full fascism on us. All right. So then what happens if Biden wins?
He's gonna go Pinochet.
Right. And do you think there'll be some more bullshit like false flag or real something blows up somewhere and then we have to go fascist?
Yeah.
Okay. So
look, the Iranians and the North Koreans are going to have nukes in his second term.
Right. Yeah.
So blow the whole shit up.
All right. And what do you think about a Biden presidency? And how long will he last with his mush brain?
He'll have to leave for medical reasons, and whoever the vice president is will end up being the president.
Okay. So with that said, who do you think will be his VP, and who do you want to be the VP?
I have no idea.
All right.
I have no idea.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see then.
Who I want him to pick as the vice president?
Yeah.
I don't know. How old is AOC now?
Oh, Dad. First of all, that would never happen. And secondly, she's way too young.
No, you gave me two options: what I think and what I want.
Well,
I would want her to be VP.
all right. Well, she's not old enough yet. Give her a couple years.
Okay.
Oh,
so,
right. That's what I want to talk about too. So, do you know there's like 20 people running against her in her district?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them is some like hack, like CNBC news anchor who's running as a Democrat, even though she said Reagan is her favorite president.
Yeah.
So, what the hell is that about?
That's bad politics.
Like I said, I feel like if she gets primaried or they try to redistrict her, then she'll just run against one of the senators and then they get booted out. Like, get rid of Gillibrand. She's useless.
Useless.
She never even got back to me when I requested those Capitol Hill tickets. At least Schumer's office got back to me.
She reminds me of that, who is the Law and Order candidate?
Oh, what? You mean like Fred Thompson?
No, the woman.
Oh, the Law and Order. Yeah, that was Diane Neal tried to run as an independent in your congressional district. Like, what the hell? What the hell was that?
Yeah, I know. That's who Gillibrand reminds me of.
All right. Well, I think that'll be it for today.
I think so. I think we've lost any listener about a half an hour ago, but so what?
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. When's the next primary?
I think it's Tuesday.
Oh,
isn't it?
You mean next week?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see if anything crazy happens in the meantime.
And I think that's including Michigan.
Okay. Well,
and a bunch of southern states.
well, we'll have to wait and see then.
Right.
All right.
Worms in the brain.
Oh, and before we go, I have to say you have a friend of yours that just came back from Italy, and he's quarantined because they think he might have the coronavirus.
Well, yeah, he's self-quarantined in his house, waiting his 14 days, and he is in Sarasota, Florida, and they just had 2 people get admitted to the hospital in Sarasota that have COVID-19, and they came from Italy. So
he's trapped.
Yeah, he's trapped. He's got, I think, 4 more days to see if he gets any symptoms. But what's bothering me is nobody is telling the simple truth of the possible creation of this virus. Nobody's talking about it. They did arrest the scientists, the nanoscientists that set up the labs, who happens to be working in the same department as my therapist's son is. So I have this inside information.
Yeah, let's backtrack on that a little bit, because I did see, there were some news articles online that I found about it, but the like broadcast media did not talk about it at all. But basically, they arrested was like the head of or at least one of the guys in the Harvard, what was it, the biology or chemistry department? It was chemistry, right? He's an expert.
The head of the virology department.
Right, and he was an expert in nanotechnology.
And an expert in nanotechnology. And he set up the university in, what's the name of the Chinese
No,
city?
it literally is the, like, was it the Wuhan, the Wuhan University of Technology. It's literally the same place where the virus came from.
And that's the laboratory he set up for them.
Right. So that's pretty freaking coincidental.
Why do I know that? And why do I know that? Why do you know that? And why is it? It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact that instead of hearing about that and bringing it to light, we hear about, it's from people eating bats in China. Talk about batshit crazy.
Yeah. Oh man, did you see that crazy Fox News guy? It's like, with its China eating bats, unlike the civilized world. And then Robert was like, "Oh, you mean like a civilized country that doesn't give people health care? Like we're in Taiwan can do that, and it's not the same as China." But yes, why do we know about the scientists and nobody talked about it? Why did no one talk about it on TV? Why did broadcast media throw that under the rug? Oh, and it wasn't just him. Some other scientist from China also got arrested, and she was at Boston University.
Right. So that's a huge cover-up, because it would mean that the U.S., America, was responsible for the virus.
Well, they didn't prove it directly that he's obviously responsible for the virus, but it's certainly weird, to say the least. Then
why did he get arrested?
Well, they apparently arrested him for lying about getting money from the Chinese. That's my understanding, which sounds kind of weak, but to me that sounds like the excuse. The real question should be, what the hell happened to the guy? Is he just like sent away in prison, never to be heard of again? Like, what the hell happened to him?
I don't know.
Right, and we'll never hear from him again.
Supposedly he got a $1 million bail. I don't know if he made the bail. I don't know if he's in jail or not. Huh. So, what the hell? All right, so let's just continue that forward and say this is a DNA-altered virus created and inadvertently released. Okay, this is like a typical sad science fiction story. And one of the factors in this nanovirus is it makes a person contagious for 2 weeks without any symptom.
Right.
And that also is shamefully missing in even the health professionals and the scientists that we hear that, are even contrary to Trump's administration, telling us the facts. But they are not telling us the fact that if I have the virus and I'm contagious and I don't know it, I walk around and do my day-to-day living infecting dozens of other people who they are then walking around contagious and not knowing it. So you have a geometric explosion before anybody knows anything. I think we're on the cusp of that in the U.S. We haven't tested anybody. South Korea's tested hundreds of thousands of people, China millions of people, and we've tested something like 600 people.
Yeah, well,
so that means and by the way, Americans are already dying from it, and everyone's walking around infecting each other. As you and I are talking right now, what is it? What day is it? March 3rd, March 4th? You got hundreds, thousands of Americans walking around infecting each other right now.
Well, see, this to bring it all back, this is another, I guess I would say, failure on the Bernie/progressive side. You figure you'd be, like I said, you just said Korea basically tested everybody in like, how long did it take him? A couple days, maybe, if that long? It's because...
Couple of weeks. And right. And why aren't the progressives saying, hey, guess what? Who's going to pay for all this testing?
Right. Well, they're already saying that. There was that article that said some Florida guy, of course, he was traveling and he came back and he wanted to get himself tested to make sure he didn't have the virus, and it cost him $3,000, and now he's screwed. So that's what we have to do. And they already said they're not going to make that basically if they come up with a vaccine, it's not going to be free.
And then there's the woman that Michael Moore retweeted. She went to get tested and they refused to test her.
Why?
Because she has no symptoms.
Oh, well, then, that's analogous to a lot of our problems in this country, is that we only do things at the very last minute when we absolutely have to. They'd rather take the risk.
So here we are sitting here. I'm not going out. I'm glad I'm not at the Home Depot for 4 days because I think the numbers are going to start ballooning. We'll see. Within the week, the numbers will start ballooning.
So I guess I'll just stay here where it's safe, even though we're next to China. I'm still better.
Yeah, how is Taiwan handling it?
Everybody's wearing face masks, and you can't buy them. They're all gone. So good thing I brought some with me. But overall, I think there's maybe been a handful of deaths, but it's nothing serious, and everything seems to be fine out here.
So there have been reported cases and deaths.
I believe so, yes.
But that's inevitable, knowing where it is. So,
right.
You might be facing. Are they doing testing?
I honestly don't know, but like I said, everybody's wearing face masks. Yeah, every time you go into one of the schools, you have to do hand sanitizer, and they have to I guess see if you have a fever. But here's the thing. The government, they are rationing out the face masks, but each person can only get maybe a couple at a time, and they cost pennies to the dollar. So they're making it very accessible to get face masks through the government, but I think it's pretty much everywhere is out of stock in a business sense.
And the other thing that blew my mind is I saw some statistics that right now the flu, which kills 30 to 40,000 Americans every year, the flu right now 1 billion people have the flu in the world right now.
Right.
So it all supports my theory of how the dinosaurs went extinct.
Well, was it like 100 years ago we had the Spanish flu? It's right around the same time, 1918, right? So
right, and the first year it came out, it wasn't so bad. It was the next year that everyone started to die.
So hopefully it doesn't get that bad, obviously. But all we can do is just wait. Wash your hands and wear those face masks if you got them, and that's about it.
Makes you want to be a shut-in, like my tenant was. Now he's back to work.
Right, at the worst time. Worst possible time.
Anyway, he was able to pay me the rent, that's all.
All right, so we'll see what happens in the next week or so. See if hopefully the virus doesn't spread, and hopefully we'll see what happens with the primary season.
Right. That's it.
All right, that's it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Liberty podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, and we'll cover the topics facing our nation and the world today. Good night and good luck.